A parliamentary inquiry in Brazil into the government's handling of the pandemic has recommended charging President Jair Bolsonaro with a series of offences, including crimes against humanity. Brazil's death toll is the second highest in the world. The European Parliament has awarded the Sakharov Human Rights Prize to the Russian opposition figure Alexei Navalny. The 45-year-old is currently serving a 2.5-year jail sentence. At least 14 people have died in a bomb attack on a military bus in the Syrian capital Damascus. 2 bombs were detonated and a third defused in the city's worst attack for years. The former head of Saudi intelligence, Prince Turki Al Faisal Al Saud, has told the BBC that al-Qaeda still exists in Afghanistan and that he believes the movement is hosted by the Taliban. They're all your latest headlines here on BBC World News.
The Biden administration says it'll make COVID-19 vaccines available to children ages 5 to 11 if and when the shot produced by Pfizer and BioNTech is approved by federal regulators. Officials say enough doses of the vaccine have been procured to be administered at more than 25,000 pediatric offices and primary care sites, as well as pharmacies and schools. We report exclusively that the board of ExxonMobil is debating whether to abandon several of its biggest oil and gas projects. People familiar with the matter say the company is analyzing the expected carbon emissions from current projects in Mozambique and Vietnam and how they would affect the company's ability to meet pledges to reduce emissions. And Nicholas Cruz has pleaded guilty to killing 17 students and staff members in the 2018 shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. Prosecutors have previously said they'll seek the death penalty for Cruz.
Hello and thank you for joining us on this edition of NHK Newsline. I'm Raja Pradhan with the news from Tokyo. We begin here in Japan, where the number of COVID-19 infections continues to decline. The Tokyo metropolitan government is planning to lift all coronavirus-related restrictions on Monday on local dining establishments certified as having anti-infection measures in place. Current restrictions require such eateries to stop serving alcohol by 8 p.m. and close by 9 p.m. More than 102,000 establishments in Tokyo are certified. That means about 85% of restaurants and bars in the capital will be allowed to resume normal operations. Those without certification are currently asked to refrain from serving alcohol. But from Monday, they'll be allowed to do so until 9 p.m. The owner of this establishment is welcoming the change.
I'm so happy that work is returning to normal, and I can finally do my job as usual.
41 new cases were confirmed in the capital on Wednesday. Infections fell below 50 for the 4th straight day. Nationwide, more than 390 cases were reported. Despite the declining trend, the government's expert panel is asking the public not to let their guard down. The experts say cases in the week through Tuesday rose slightly in 12 of Japan's 47 prefectures. Now, Singapore has joined the list of Southeast Asian nations that are cautiously reopening amid the pandemic. The city-state has expanded its program to allow quarantine-free entry for fully vaccinated people from 8 more locations in Europe and North America. The program was extended from Tuesday to 10 countries, including the United States, Canada, the UK, France, and Italy. Negative COVID-19 tests are required in all cases. Singapore launched a program with Brunei and Germany last month to lure back tourists and business travelers.
I think in this world you need to take safety and precaution very dearly, and I think the Singaporean government is doing that quite well, or very well. But I do appreciate that the family can travel again.
84% of Singapore's population is fully vaccinated. But it's seen an increase in infections recently, including a one-day record of over 3,900 cases on Tuesday. The quarantine-free travel program is scheduled to include South Korea in the middle of November. Moving now to Syria, where a pair of explosions have killed at least 14 military personnel in the capital Damascus. Several were injured. The country's state-run media says 2 bombs attached to a military bus exploded on Wednesday morning. The blast occurred during rush hour in a district lined with luxury hotels and restaurants. No one has claimed responsibility for the attack. The government of President Bashar al-Assad now controls much of the country as Syria's decade-long civil war continues. Opposition forces have been driven to a northwestern area. Russia backs Assad and Turkey backs the anti-government forces. Sporadic battles still take place even after Russia and Turkey agreed to a ceasefire in 2020. Islamic State militants have also carried out terrorist attacks. Floods and landslides caused by torrential rain have left more than 100 people dead across India and Nepal. Indian officials in the northern state of Uttarakhand say rescue operations are underway for people stranded by the flooding. The military and disaster management authorities have deployed boats and helicopters, but at least 46 people have been confirmed dead, with many still missing after several days of heavy rain. Prime Minister Narendra Modi took to Twitter to send his condolences. He also said he's praying for everyone's safety and well-being. In the southern state of Kerala, a series of landslides have killed at least 27 people. Weather officials are warning of more rain to come. There have also been dozens of victims in neighboring Nepal. The Ministry of Home Affairs says at least 31 people have been killed, with over 40 listed as missing. India and Nepal suffer frequent similar disasters during the monsoon season between June and September, but recent years have seen downpours at other times as well. Next, women in many parts of the world suffer from what's known as period poverty, where they can't afford to buy the sanitary products they need each month. The problem is common in India, and as NHK World's Neha Sharma explains, cost is not the only barrier.
A factory in the northern Indian village of Obarpur. The women are making sanitary pads. A local NGO established this project 2 years ago and hired villagers as workers. Varsha is one of 5 staff members who together make about 2,000 pads per day. They and other village women say they couldn't afford to buy sanitary pads before these handmade items became available. They are a good deal. The quality is high, the price low. 6 cost less than 50 US cents.
In villages, such things were not easily available. Women here generally only used cloth. I'm happy that this machine came to our village and that we started production.
Varsha's mother Shashi recommended that she join the project. When Shashi was younger, menstruation meant missing school.
Cloth just wasn't enough, so I couldn't go to school. All the girls had the same problem. I had to struggle, but my daughter should not go through the same thing.
At the root of the problem is a prejudice against menstruation. There is a deeply held belief in local areas that periods are impure and shameful. Varsha says she was told to avoid local temples and household kitchens if she was having her period.
Everyone stopped me from going to the temple. You cannot go there, cannot touch pickles. I wondered what was wrong with me.
The factory drew the attention of other villagers. The women working there also promoted their napkins in other villages.
Women used to be hesitant because of their lack of knowledge, and the mentality toward menstruation hasn't changed, so they don't like to speak openly about it. But gradually, they started to realize that women do need this.
My friends say that they want to work here, and they ask me for pads for them to use. They are happy about the factory.
Similar projects have popped up in many other villages. The women's grassroots efforts are on a very small scale, but they are making a big difference in helping dispel a deeply rooted social stigma. Neha Sharma, NHK World, New Delhi.
Japanese nuclear regulators plan to start an on-site inspection of a power plant in central Japan next week to confirm if proper security measures have been implemented. The move follows a series of serious breaches of anti-terrorism measures reported earlier this year. The Nuclear Regulation Authority on Wednesday discussed the planned inspection of the Kashiwazaki Kariwa plant. Officials will determine if measures taken by the plant's operator, Tokyo Electric Power Company, are effective.
I want inspectors to grasp the situation on the ground and check whether the measures meet the required level of protection and if they can be maintained or not.
In March, an NRA probe found sensors for detecting intruders at the plant were broken and alternative measures put in place were not sufficient. 2 of the 7 reactors there have passed the screenings required before restarts. But Fuketa says the inspection will last about a year, so the plant is expected to remain offline until late 2022. An opinion poll suggests Chinese people's impression of Japan has worsened for the first time in 8 years. The Gendon NPO in Japan and China International Publishing Group held the annual joint survey in both countries. They received responses from more than 2,500 people between August and September. Of the Chinese respondents, 66.1% said they have an unfavorable or somewhat unfavorable impression of Japan. That's up 13.2 percentage points from last year. The last time the result worsened was in 2013. That was 1 year after Japan's government bought some of the Senkaku Islands in the East China Sea from a private Japanese owner. Japan controls the islands. The Japanese government maintains they're an inherent part of Japan's territory. China and Taiwan claim them. Of the Japanese respondents, 90.9% said they have an unfavorable or somewhat unfavorable impression of China. That's almost the same level as last year. The Gendon NPO says direct exchanges between people from both nations, including tourism, help improve how they see each other. It says a decline in the number of Chinese visitors to Japan due to the pandemic could have affected the result. China has welcomed the arrival of the Olympic flame from Greece ahead of the 2022 Beijing Winter Games that kick off in February. The secretary of the Communist Party's Beijing Municipal Committee lit a cauldron with the flame Wednesday at a ceremony in the capital. China will display the flame at the Beijing Olympic Tower before showcasing it at related events across the nation from December. Olympic organizers say they've scaled down the route, duration, and number of participants for the torch relay to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. The relay will be held for only 3 days through February 4th, the date of the game's opening ceremony. The organizers say the relay will take place in Beijing and the neighboring city of Zhangjiakou in Hebei province with about 1,200 torchbearers. Those cities are scheduled to host competition venues. Shifting now to the weather, heavy rain and fierce winds pummeled northern Japan on Wednesday, forcing many people to evacuate. Our meteorologist Jonathan Oh has the forecast for there and elsewhere in our World Weather Report.
Hello, we had some strong storms rolling through the northern areas of Japan as we went through Wednesday because of a low pressure system that really wrapped itself around, and that ended up bringing some high winds, strong winds with the high waves. Here's a look at some of the video to give you an idea of what it looked like over in Hokkaido, where we had this stormy weather in the northern portions of the country. A highway was flooded, had to be closed, with gusts over 80 kilometers per hour were reported during the morning hours, and that led to those high waves. Southern areas of Hokkaido, about 2,000 people had to be evacuated due to the risk of landslides. Still looking at the wet weather coming up as we go throughout the next few days for those in the northern areas of the country, as this low is stubborn and it's going to take some time for it to clear out of the area. And we are talking about that cold air coming in from the north, and so that's going to also keep temperatures relatively cool as we go into Thursday for places like Tokyo and Osaka. Even Fukuoka dropping to only around a high of 19 coming up on Thursday, rebounding back into the 20s later on this week. It's how we're looking at wet weather for the next couple of days. Keeping an eye out on what's happening in South Asia along the eastern areas of India down toward the south, and also extending over into places like Bangladesh, where we've been dealing with the withdrawal of the monsoonal front, but brought some tremendous amounts of rainfall with flooding issues coming with that. Thunderstorms are going to continue as we go into the day on Thursday here from Kathmandu over in Nepal down over toward the east. We're looking at that rate thunderstorm activity, and even down to the southern areas of India, continuing with that thunderstorm activity coming up on Thursday. Stormy weather also in the northern areas of Europe, as we had a couple of low pressure rolling through the region. So that's really picking up the strong winds and the thunderstorm activity and heavy rainfall associated with this. We'll see more of that throughout the rest of the day on Wednesday, heading into Thursday. So be on the lookout for that. Hope you have a safe day wherever you are.